Odin, the Allfather, already had everything a god could possibly want: power, respect, and a throne high above the 9 realms. But this still wasn't enough. He wanted to have more, to know more. So he made a trade. In order to acquire knowledge, Odin gave up one of his eyes. And you? What would you give up? With all of his power and influence over all the gods and mortals in Midgard, he felt like none of that would actually matter if he couldn't see beyond the veil. He ruled, but he didn't know everything. He wanted to understand the deep workings of fate, the hidden truths of cosmos, the whispers of the past, and the warnings of the future. There was only one place in all of the 9 realms that would give him this. Deep within the roots of Yggdrasil, the great world tree that connected all of the 9 realms, was Mimir's well. This was a source of wisdom so ancient and so powerful that not even the gods could drink from it without paying a price. Legend said that its waters contained the secrets of creation itself. Those who drank from it could see beyond the veil, basically gaining a level of insight and understanding beyond what any other god or mortal could hope for. But of course, nothing this powerful comes without a cost. The journey that Odin had to undertake was definitely not an easy one. This well was situated in the vast and distant realm of Jotunheim, the land of the giants. This was a completely unforgiving place. The weather was terrible, it was cold, it had harsh winds, tons of mountains shooting up high into the sky. This was not a very fun place to be in, and in order to reach it, Odin would need to travel past the halls of Asgard, through the fields of Midgard, and into the darkest and most treacherous corners of Yggdrasil. And most importantly, he would need to do it alone. When he was ready to depart, he mounted his great 8-legged steed, and off he went. They moved fast, faster than any mortal eye could follow. For several days and several nights, Odin pushed forward, riding through forests, across frozen rivers and over mountains. The air just kept growing colder the further he went. The sky darkened thick with storm clouds that never seemed to end, but he didn't care. He was on a mission and he was going to follow through. Finally, after countless miles and what seemed like an eternity, he finally arrived at his destination. As Odin approached Mimir's well, he saw this little valley surrounded by ancient trees whose roots struck so deep within the earth they were practically sawn into the fabric of the world. He took a look at the water, and it was still, too still. It was like this black mirror, reflecting nothing but secrets that no living being was supposed to know. And there, standing beside it, lay Mimir himself. Mimir, as you might already imagine, was no ordinary being. It was said that he was so old that he was older than the stars, older than Yggdrasil itself. His skin was proof of this, as he was wrinkled beyond recognition, and he had this piercing gaze like he could see straight into Odin's soul. Odin at this point simply dismounted and stepped forward, and with a strong and determined voice filled with authority, he said, "I have come to drink from the well of wisdom." Mimir said nothing. He just stood there silent for a moment, kinda sizing him up. Then, after a long pause, he simply chuckled. It was a deep and knowing sound, like he had been anticipating this for a very long time, and this was no surprise. He was, after all, an all-knowing being, and bear in mind, Odin was a god. He was not used to someone treating him with such contempt. Then he just let out a great sigh and just said, "Ah, Odin, I see you've finally come." Odin simply met his gaze right back without flinching and simply said, "Then you already know why I'm here." Mimir just nodded slowly and said, "Yes, indeed I do. But tell me, are you truly ready for what you seek?" At this, Odin simply nodded, and Mimir let out another deep sigh and said, "Then you know that wisdom comes at a price. Knowledge is a burden, and those who seek it must be willing to give something in return." Odin expected this, but his heart still pounded. Now that it came to it, he wondered, what would I be willing to give? But he just kept his composure and simply asked, "What is your price?" At this, Mimir's lips curled into a faint smile and said, "Something precious, something irreplaceable." deepening his gaze into Odin's eyes, he simply said, "I want your eye." After this, there was only silence. For several long, stretching seconds, none of them say anything. They simply stared at each other, two beings at the edge of the world, one weighed by ancient knowledge, and one weighed by the price yet to be paid. Odin knew what was about to happen. He had known this from the moment that he set out on his quest, and he knew what it meant. Giving up his eye was not just a wound, it was a sacrifice, a surrender, a part of himself that he would never be able to reclaim. But wisdom had a cost, and he was willing to pay it. Without saying a word, he just reached down, grabbed the hilt of his dagger, and just stared at it for a second or two, and then just simply plunged it right into his eye. The agony was unbearable, searing through his skull like fire, like molten iron being poured straight into his veins. His vision blurred, his body trembled, but he made no sound. He refused to cry out. He gritted his teeth, holding back the scream that clawed at his throat as he wrenched the eye free. Hot, thick blood ran down his face, dripping from his chin. His breath came rough and uneven, but he did not cry out, not even once. Now, with the wound still burning, he just simply grabbed his eye and offered it to Mimir. Mimir watched him with the knowing gaze of one who had seen many sacrifices, but none quite like this. A slow smile, one of approval, started to show on his face as he reached down and accepted the offering. Then, without much ceremony, Mimir just grabbed his eye and dropped it into the well. At that moment, Mimir just simply stepped aside. "Now," he said, "you may drink." Odin, still gasping through the remnants of pain, knelt before the well. His hands, slick with blood, trembled as he dipped them into the frigid obsidian water. The cold bit into his skin, sharp and merciless, but he just ignored it. He simply cupped the water in his palms and just brought it to his face. And the very moment that the water touched his lips, everything changed. The world around him, as he knew it, vanished. Time collapsed into itself, folding and twisting like an unending spiral. Space bent beyond recognition, warping into impossible shapes that defied all logic. He felt himself pulled in every direction at once, neither here nor there, neither present or past. He simply was. But then, the visions came. He saw the past before him, stretching back beyond the first memory. He saw the first breath of creation, the birthing of the cosmos in fire and light, the forging of Yggdrasil's root deep into the fabric of existence. He saw gods awaking, taking form from the raw essence of void, carving order from chaos. He saw the 9 realms take shape, worlds of ice and flame, shadow and mist. He saw every war waged from the dawn of time, every triumph carved into history, every betrayal whispered in dark halls. He saw the blades of ancient heroes clash, saw their victories, their losses, their deaths. He saw the flickering candlelight of forgotten souls, their legacies swallowed by the relentless tide of time. Then he turned his gaze forward, and he saw the future. He stood at the edge of oblivion, his breath ragged, his weapon heavy in his grasp. Before him loomed the great wolf Fenrir, its eyes burning with the fire of worlds consumed. He could hear the beast's breath, feel the ground tremble beneath its mighty steps. He knew at that moment, deep in his soul, that no matter how fiercely he fought, no matter how fiercely he struggled, that battle would be his last. He would not survive. The weight of all that knowledge, of all that fate, crashed down upon him like a vast ocean. His remaining eye widened. His breath was getting heavier by the second. He had sought the wisdom beyond the veil. He had hunger for truth no other dared to claim, and now he had it. The truth was a burden heavier than any weapon, crueler than any curse. He had seen the threads of fate woven together, an unbreakable design stretching to the end of time itself. He had glimpsed the inevitable, and he knew that no god, no warrior, no king would survive. And yet, he would now have to carry this huge burden forever. When Odin finally pulled away his face from the well, his face was pale, his breath was slow and measured, his expression was completely unreadable. His single remaining eye just seemed distant, gazing not at the world around him, but something far beyond, something no other god had seen before, something no other god would see. Mimir watched him carefully, his ancient face displaying something almost resembling pity, perhaps even sadness. He just simply looked at Odin and said, "Now you understand." At this, Odin said nothing. Words felt hollow, meaningless in the face of what he had witnessed. There was nothing left to ask, nothing left to say. He simply turned, walked towards his steed, and just simply galloped away. But the journey home was not the same. The road stretched before him as it always had, and yet it felt different. Longer, darker. The weight of knowledge pressed down on him like an unseen hand, sinking deep into his bones. Infinite knowledge and wisdom had cost him more than just his eye. It had cost him his peace. When he finally passed through the gates of Asgard, the other gods turned to greet him, but the moment that their eyes fell upon him, their words failed. Their faces shifted from welcome to something resembling concern. It was not just the missing eye that unsettled them, though it did cause an impression, and it was an undeniable reminder of the price that he had to pay. It was something else, something deeper, something in the way that he carried himself, in the weight of his silence, in the way his gaze seemed to pierce through them, not looking at them, but through them. He was still Odin, still the Allfather, still the ruler of Asgard, but he was no longer the same, because now he knew. He had seen how it would end. He had seen the fire. He had seen the ruin. He had watched the walls of Asgard fall, had heard the howls of Fenrir, had felt the cold grasp of death reaching for them all. And really the only thing that they could do was prepare for it. Thank you so much for joining me for today's tale. If you had fun or learned anything, be sure to like, subscribe, share this video with someone else. Also, let me know what you guys think about the new format with me showing my face. Like it, hate it, anything's valid, just write it down in the comments. And also, if you liked that video, be sure to check this video in the corner about Loki's worst crime. Until the next tale, farewell, and may the gods smile upon you.